What makes an escape room puzzle actually great? Not just good, not just functional, not just something you solve and immediately forget. I'm talking about puzzles that make your heart start pounding, the ones that make your whole team come alive, the ones that hit that deep part of your brain that make you go, yeah, this is amazing. Today we're talking about puzzle designs that just work. This isn't a list of the hardest puzzles I've seen. It's not a list of the most expensive puzzles I've seen. And it's definitely not a list of the most complicated puzzles I've seen. This is about the puzzles that feel great to play. For me, the best puzzle design comes down to a few things. First, no guesswork. I want physical interaction. I want strong feedback loops. And I want puzzles that actually require thought and logic. And to keep this spoiler free, I'm going to stay vague on room names and exact solutions. I want to talk about why these puzzles worked without ruining the experience for anyone who might want to play later. So here are 5 examples of puzzle designs that are absolutely top tier. One of my favorite puzzles I've ever done took a very simple idea and turned it into something unforgettable. The basic concept was red light, green light. One player had to navigate a maze-like space, but only when it was safe to move. The second that changed, they had to stop. Other team members had to watch the signal and call out when this was happening, especially because there was a small warning light right before it changed. That on its own is already a great setup. Everybody understands the rules immediately. There's no long explanation needed. The goal is clear, the danger is clear, and the team's roles are clear. And this matters. A lot of weaker puzzles are confusing right from the start. You're not trying to solve the puzzle, you're trying to figure out what the puzzle even wants from you. And that's bad design. This one did the opposite. It's instantly readable and still tense and exciting. And what really made it special was that it felt like magic in the moment. Usually in an escape room, you can tell what is happening behind the scenes. You assume there's a sensor, a magnet, RFID, something along those lines. But here, the mechanism wasn't obvious at all. It just felt like the room was watching you. The mystery made the whole thing better. The puzzle almost hit every principle I care about. There was no guesswork. You really can't brute force your way through red light, green light. There is physical interaction built into the entire thing. Strong feedback loops because you immediately know when you're safe, when you messed up, and when you succeeded. And most importantly, it creates real tension. That's a huge part of top-tier design. Great puzzles shouldn't just test your brain, they should make you feel something, and this one absolutely did. Another puzzle that stands out to me worked because it turned the entire team into part of the solution. This room had a live actor, and the team had to solve several connected steps to get that actor into the right place so something important in the room could finally be revealed. What made this so strong was that it wasn't just one person solving a clue while everybody else stood around. Different team members had to do different jobs simultaneously. One person might be triggering part of the environment. Another one might be watching for a result somewhere else. And everybody else may be staying clear because getting too close created its own problem. This kind of role splitting is one of the best things that escape rooms can do. When a puzzle works like that, it stops feeling like a worksheet on a wall and starts becoming an event. This one also required players to remember information from an earlier clue and apply it in the right order. That's another thing I love. When a room trusts you to actually use what you've learned instead of spoon-feeding the answer right in front of you. Because that's one of the biggest design mistakes out there. If the answer is basically written on the same object you're unlocking, it's not satisfying. It's not a puzzle. You're just following directions. Here, the room expected you to remember, interpret, and execute. And because a live actor was involved, it also had something many escape room puzzles don't: unpredictability. That made it feel tense and a little chaotic, a little scary in the best possible way. Again, this checks all the boxes. No guesswork, heavy physical interaction, a clear feedback loop, and real logic and recall. But more than that, it felt alive. This is top-tier puzzle design. When the system responds to the players in a way that feels dynamic, you stop feeling like you're solving a prop and you start feeling like you're inside the story. Now let's talk about a puzzle that proves something important. A puzzle can be demanding without being frustrating. In this one, players had to align lasers across multiple points in a room and land them in the correct targets. That sounds simple when you say it fast, but it's not. Because adjusting one part affected the rest, you couldn't just solve one piece by itself. Everything was interconnected. Change one angle, and suddenly something else was off. So the team had to keep reading clues, rotating objects, and checking the alignment, slowly dialing in the whole system together. And that's why the puzzle worked. Not because it was complicated for the sake of being complicated, but because it was clear despite being complex. And that's a huge difference. Bad puzzle design gives you complexity and confusion. Good puzzle design gives you complexity and clarity. You always understood what the goal was here. You always knew whether you were getting close. And when you finally got it all lined up, you got one of the best rewards an escape room can give you, a loud, unmistakable success sound. That matters more than some designers realize. If your room is noisy, chaotic, or full of activity, players need to know they succeeded. You can't rely on somebody hearing a tiny click in the distance or noticing that a small hidden panel has moved. Great puzzles confirm success clearly, and this one absolutely did. It also made teamwork feel natural. One person would be rotating, another could be watching the beam, another one could be cross-checking a clue. Everyone had something to do. And that's one of the clearest signs of a top-tier puzzle, when the room makes the whole team feel smart together. Some top-tier puzzles are physical, others are technical, and some are great because they create the perfect aha moment. This is one of those. In this puzzle, multiple sets of information were spread across different areas. On their own, none of them screamed that they belonged together. One piece looked like a single clue, another looked unrelated, and the other one looked like background detail. And then somebody on the team noticed a connection. One person was reading something aloud, and another person noticed a detail in a visual element. And then somebody else connected that to a larger reference elsewhere. And suddenly, the whole team had that moment. Wait, these all go together. That is such a powerful feeling in an escape room because the room didn't hand you the connection, it trusted you to find it. That trust is important. Some puzzle designs fail because they underestimate the players. It assumes they need everything fed to them in the most obvious way possible. But the best rooms let you make the real discoveries. The puzzle also avoided guesswork. There was no realistic way to brute force it. You had to think, you had to observe, you had to connect information in the right order. And once it clicked, it felt earned. And that is the key word, earned. Not random, not handed to you, but earned. Top tier puzzle design makes players feel like they've accomplished something real, and this one absolutely did. The final example is one I loved because it showed how elegant puzzle design can be. At its core, the puzzle wasn't anything particularly complicated. Players had to identify a constellation and use it to get a numeric answer. That could have been incredibly boring. It could have just been a direct lookup, read the label, find the shape, get the number, move on. But instead, the room layered it. First, players had to read the constellation's name in Braille using a translation guide. Then they had to plot that constellation correctly in the right place. And then they had to follow the pattern to get the number they needed. That's such a smart design choice. Because instead of just handing the players the category clue they needed, the room made them engage with the system first. It made them learn something, apply it, and finish the problem. That is so much more satisfying. Even better, it still worked as a team puzzle. One person could be reading, another could be plotting, another person could be handling the code entry. And because it had to be repeated multiple times, the team could settle into a rhythm. That's another mark of good design. Repeatable structure, but without becoming repetitive. This puzzle also had strong feedback, which helped a lot, because players could tell quickly whether or not they were on the right track. If the placement didn't make sense, then that was useless information. If the translation seemed wrong, that showed up too. So even though this wasn't flashy, it still had the things that mattered. No guesswork, thought and logic, useful feedback, and real engagement. This kind of puzzle that scratches the deep brain itch in the best way. And honestly, those are often the ones that I remember the longest. Looking across all 5 of these, they're actually pretty different. One is tense and physical, the other is dramatic and chaotic, one is precise and technical, another is about the aha moment, and the other is elegant and layered. But they all work for the same reason. They respect the player. They don't expect you to guess. They don't spoon feed the answer. They make you interact. They give you clear feedback, and they make you feel like that puzzle is earned. That is what top-tier puzzle design looks like. Not just a cool prop, not just a difficult challenge, and not just a fancy mechanism. The puzzle feels great to solve. And if I compare these to weaker puzzles, the difference gets even clearer. Bad puzzles often rely on outside knowledge that players don't have. They may put the answer right on the lock and call that design, or they fail to tell players that they've actually succeeded clearly. And that kind of stuff kills momentum, because when a puzzle really works, it does the opposite. It gets the adrenaline going. It makes you feel like you've accomplished something, and it scratches that itch deep in your brain that makes you want another room right away. That's what these puzzles did, and that's why they're top tier. So those are 5 examples of puzzle designs that just work. Not because they're the biggest, not because they're the hardest, but because they are smart, satisfying, and unforgettable. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And in the comments, tell me about a puzzle that you've seen that you think is even better than the ones I've covered here. Because honestly, I'm always looking for the next great one. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.